This week, in addition to our examination and exploration of art song, we're actually also going to be looking at this idea of the aesthetic, of the emotion aesthetic, that we kind of see really embodied in this in Lieder, German art song, through the text that we have of a fictional composer named Joseph Berglinger, written by the poet Walkenroder. We see kind of the beginning of this emotion aesthetic concept in the 19th century artist. And we're going to hopefully see how this is played out in Lieder. And I believe that Lieder is going to be one of these things that really typifies the romantic ideal all the way through mid-century, mid-19th century. I've included a YouTube example of something that is not mid-19th century Lieder, that is actually later. And hopefully you can hear by listening to Schubert and Wolf and comparing the two recordings. Hopefully you can hear some differences and maybe sort of the forward-thinkingness of the harmony in Wolf as compared to what we have in Schubert. Although Schubert's harmony, is somewhat forward thinking at the time. However, Schubert, though, really embraced classical forms and idioms, much like Beethoven. And remember that Beethoven and Schubert were contemporaries. They lived at the same time, Schubert dying a year after Beethoven. And so I want you to make sure that you read the text and you listen to the music examples that we have in our text, but then I also want you to go a little bit further with that and actually kind of read the content. There's not a lot up this week as far as the blog is concerned. And that's one of the reasons is because I've included an essay that is on the remarkable life of the musician Joseph Berglinger by Walkenroder, and so hopefully you'll read that and get an idea. Remember, it is a fictional composer, it's not a real person, but it does kind of present this idea of music and being the embodiment of the poetic ideal. And what we see in Berglinger is we actually see music sort of being removed from an object into something that is otherworldly, sort of this religious contemplation with sort of, that's projected onto music of how we experience music in the 19th century. And so with that, hopefully you'll begin to see some different things about the aesthetic expressed in Lieder. With Schubert, one thing that I want you to think about and to listen to when you are listening to the Schubert examples is to listen to his use of the piano. Which is going to be very different from what Schumann does. Schubert is going to really use the piano as another tool of expression, not just relying on the text. Goethe actually believed in the early development of Lieder, really at the turn of the 19th century, that the music really should not try to express anything more than the text. It was really just kind of to be a medium for the delivery of the text. However, Schubert believed that the composer was on the same level as the poet. And so we see that in really expressed in the accompaniment of his Lieder. With Schumann, due to the fact that he was a pianist first, his goal was to be a virtuoso pianist, but through ruining his hands through a device he created, that kind of sidelined that career, obviously. And so with his accompaniments to his Lieder, we actually see the piano taking on a much different role. The piano is a lot of times going above and beyond what the voice is doing, what the text is doing. And we even see this in some of the long interludes within the music in which the piano does some really interesting things. So anyway, but I want you to make sure that you're ready for the discussion on Wednesday, and I'll see you then. Thanks.